Hello everyone, Tess Thomas here with Clay County Historical and Arts Council. Welcome back to another episode of One-on-One with Clay County History. Today we're in Hayesville, North Carolina with Miss Pam Miller. Pam, thank you so much for having us.
I'm so glad to be here with you.
I'm excited to hear all these stories your daughter's been kind of hinting around at what you're going to be talking about today, but let's just start off with your great-grandfather, Joseph Miller, and how he came to be in Clay County.
Okay, he came from Franklin, and I don't know when, but my grandfather, he was born here in this area, and he was born in 1900, so it was sometime before 1900 that he came here from Franklin. He had, I think, 9 kids by a lady over there, and she died. And then he came here. He moved here and married a lady here. And they lived on pine log. And the story that was told to me was that he bought the land unseen. And when he got there, there was a house already built. And there was some Mormons living in it. And so they were squatters. They just squatted for land. So, from what I've been told, Grandpa made them leave. He took over the house and had 2 more children, I believe.
So he was like the father of 11.
11.
Wow.
And
big families back then.
Yeah. And so later on in life, when they got old, they moved that house down to where it sits now on poles, on logs.
Wow.
And rolled it,
yeah, the whole house.
Down the hill and put it where it is now. And I was conceived in that house.
Really?
My mom and dad and my brother were staying with my grandparents, and I was conceived in the house upstairs. Yeah, sure was.
Well, let's back up a little bit from your parents to your grandparents. So, what was your grandfather's name?
My grandpa's name was Wythe, W-Y-T-H-E.
Wythe Miller, and his wife's
Novella.
And
he was blind.
Really?
Yes. And I don't know if he was born blind or if he went blind, but I know that when he was, I think, 5 years old, he was sent to the blind school, state blind school. And that's where he lived.
That's interesting.
But he could get to come home for holidays.
Was that something that his parents had to pay for, or that was just everybody was allowed to go for no cost because they needed that?
I'd say
help?
it belonged to the state. So
it was funded by the state.
So
interesting. Where was the school?
Raleigh.
In Raleigh. Oh, that was a long way from home for him.
The Raleigh State School for the Blind.
No kidding.
And so he came home on holidays and such. But now later on in life, I remember Daddy telling stories of when he was a youngster, Grandpa being blind, but later on in life he had an operation where he could see, but his glasses were like this thick.
Oh, wow.
But
at least he had some type of vision at that point. That's awesome.
Yeah, and he used to be he graduated from the state school, and then he went on to teach at the state school.
Oh,
music.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then he went on to the he went on to college and ended up teaching music at the college, for state college.
Talented man.
Yes, and then he retired in Young Harris College of tuning pianos, and that's what he did for a living around here.
Tuning pianos?
Tuning pianos.
That's cool.
Yeah. And Granny, she was just a little housewife, you know, and stayed home. And she had a cow, so she sold milk and butter,
Cute.
and picked out walnuts. She sold walnuts, eggs. She sold eggs. She had chickens, and that's how she made her little money. Was
And they had 3 children.
yes.
And what were their names?
Ralph was the oldest, then Annabelle, and then my dad Jack.
So they had 3 kids: Ralph, Annabelle, and Jack. Okay. And is there any other stories you want to tell me about your grandparents?
There's one that my daughter Leanne thinks that should be told.
Okay, let's hear
I
it.
really just don't think people would be interested in it, but
You would be
I don't know.
surprised. People love hearing the history of others.
But because of this, I knew that there really is a God and He does answer prayers.
Well, then of course we need to hear it.
My brother was an avid hunter, loved to hunt, and he had a little 20 gauge shotgun. And he was out checking it was in November 25th. I think 69. I was 11. And he was out checking his rabbit boxes, and it was our granny's birthday. And me and Grandpa and Granny, we were let out of school early too, for the Thanksgiving vacation because of the heater not working at school.
Oh.
So we got some extra days off. And it was the 25th of November, and Granny and Grandpa and me were all sitting around the wood stove, and it was in the living room, and Granny and Grandpa's bed was in the living room too. And so Grandpa was sitting in his chair by the wood heater. Granny was sitting on the other side, and I was sitting in front of it. And my brother started yelling, and Grandpa said, I said, something's wrong with Ricky, and he said, no, there's not, and he's just mocking the birds. And I kept listening, and I said, no, Grandpa, there's something wrong with Ricky. And he told me, he said, if you go out that door, I'm going with you. Your brother needs a break. Leave him alone. Because I
Hester and your siblings,
Yeah.
right?
So I looked at Grandpa and I looked at the door, and I know something was wrong with Ricky. I could tell it from the way he sounded. So I looked at Grandpa again, looked at that door again. I thought, can I get out that door before he snatches my britches?
Right.
So on the way out, I hit for the door and jumped off the porch and took off running. And Ricky was screaming, and I said, Ricky, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he said, Pam, I've shot myself. Go get help.
Thank God that
So,
you didn't listen to Grandpa.
Yeah. And I was terrified of Grandpa, but I knew something was wrong.
Right.
But by the time, and I just started screaming at the top of my lungs. And by the time I got back to the house, Granny and Grandpa were both outside on the porch. And I screamed what had happened and ran back to Ricky. And then Granny and Grandpa ran up there, and they told me to, I told them we've got to have a tourniquet. We've got to put a tourniquet on him. So I went to the back porch and got some baling twine and a stick, and we were going to use it, but the string broke. So they had to send me back to the house.
Oh my gosh.
And I grabbed a sheet, and they ripped up a sheet and used that. And in the meantime, while they were fixing that tourniquet, they sent me back to the house to call for help.
Where did he shoot himself at? What
In
part?
the leg, in
the
his
leg?
thigh,
Oh my gosh.
on his inner thigh, and it come out on his outer thigh in 2 places.
Oh my gosh.
And it took 8 inches of his artery out, main artery. And I was 11, and he was almost 13. Just like 3 weeks before turning 13. And I was 11. And
so you went back up to the house to call for help.
yeah, and back in those days, we had party line.
Sure.
And so I picked up the phone, and old ladies was yakking on it. So I slammed it down, and I picked it back up, and I said, I need the phone. Ricky's been shot. So, of course, they slammed it down. We didn't have 911 back then either.
Right.
So I had to call the operator. And it was up to her to disperse help. So she called Murphy Hospital. We didn't have one in Peachtree. It was in Murphy. And the one in Hiwassee called them both. That way whoever got there first could get him and take him. And it just so happened that Hiwassee got there first and took him. But I'll never forget when, after we called for help, well, first I called for Johnny, and he was a cousin's husband that was working on a farm next to ours, and because he had a truck, that's who Grandpa said to call. So, and Johnny got there, and he was in. When he saw what was going on, he just went up to a rock and sat down and cried. He couldn't. He
just
lost
fell
control.
apart. Yeah.
So he was going to be no help. That's when I called the ambulance. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I get when I talk
Thinking about it. Yeah, I would imagine the emotions are running high.
But so anyways, Murphy got there before they got there, I had Ricky's head in my lap. And I had to take the tobacco out of his mouth because he had a plug of tobacco. And Granny and Grandpa, kept encouraging him, and I kept encouraging him, stay awake, don't go to sleep, stay with us and all. And he kind of drifted in and out a little bit. And Ricky looked up at Granny and said, "Oh, Granny, I'm so sorry. I have ruined your birthday."
Oh, what a heart to think about it. Someone else in the middle of that.
She's like, "It's okay, son. My birthday's not ruined. You just make it, and that'll make my birthday."
Right.
So, Hiwassee Hospital got there first. Ambulance got there first, and they were putting Ricky in the back of the ambulance, and Daddy had gotten there right after the ambulance did, right before they, got Ricky. They were putting Ricky in the ambulance when Daddy got there. And I just lost it because I thought I was going too, And
they wouldn't allow you to go with him?
They said there wasn't room. And I just lost it about them taking my brother away. And the thoughts of me never seeing him again or nothing.
And you were 11, so...
Yeah, and I was 11.
Wow,
And
that's a lot.
so I just went to pieces, and Grandpa hollering, "You can't go, you be in the way." And Daddy pointed his finger at Grandpa and says, "You call Katie Miller and you tell her to come get her and bring her to the hospital." So Grandpa did, and Katie took me up there, and they wouldn't let me in the room with Ricky, but they let me stand outside in the hallway and let us see each other.
So you can still see him through the window?
No, it was. They had him in a room, and it was a door open.
I see.
And they were going to transfer. They packed his leg and eyes and everything, and changed his tourniquet, and stabilized him. And they were going to take him by ambulance to Hall County Hospital, a hospital which is in Gainesville. And so they let us tell each other bye, and I stood in the hallway, and we waved at each other, and they took him on, and of course, Daddy stayed with him, and I stayed up here with Granny and Grandpa, and it was getting close to Christmas, and I kept saying, Ricky will be home for Christmas, and Granny's like, no, honey, Ricky can't come home. And I was like, no, he's got to be home for Christmas. And I just kept on, and I wouldn't let it die. And Grandpa said, there ain't going to be no Christmas this year. And I said, oh, yes, there is going to be a Christmas because Ricky's going to be here. And so I went out, snuck Granny's hatchet in the middle of this field, and chopped down a little cedar tree.
For a Christmas tree?
For a Christmas tree.
Aww.
It couldn't have been 3-4 foot high. But I'm telling you what, it wore me out chopping it.
Oh, I bet you're 11 years old for crying out loud.
And to me, it was a giant.
Sure it was.
But I made it home with it, and Grandpa, oh, he was furious. And Granny gave him that look and said, you're not going to say a word to her. And so I put up my little tree on Granny's sewing machine, and she told me, she said, she kept telling me that he couldn't come home. I said, he'll be here. She said, well, all you can do is pray. So I said, okay, Granny, I'm praying hard. And I'd say my prayers, say, Lord, send him home for Christmas. And Minnie Owens gave me cotton balls that she had collected out of pill bottles. Betty Owens gave me a string of lights. Katie Miller gave me colored construction paper to make chains.
All for you to decorate this tree.
And we popped corn, and me and my cousin strung popcorn, and cousin Denise, and made paper chains. And Granny gave me some used tinfoil to make a star for the top. And that was our little tree.
That's awesome.
And I kept saying, he's coming home. And I don't know if Granny's told Daddy, I don't know what to do about her, that she's determined that he's going to be here, and that she's praying to God, and I can't let her,
be disappointed.
So I don't know if they probably, Daddy had a talk with the doctor and said, look, we've got to do something here. But my brother got to come home for Christmas. He got to stay for 3 days, and then he had to go back. And that's when I knew there was a God.
That's right.
And that's when I knew that he answered prayers.
Amen.
At 11 years old.
Right? Thank you for sharing that story. That's, I know, emotional, but it's really important that.
And I didn't get to see my brother again for quite some time. When they released him from that hospital, they sent him to Warm Springs Hospital in Georgia for rehab. And he had to spend a long time down there. And it was after Christmas, I remember. And my mom and daddy were divorced and all. And my Grandpa Miller despised her and wouldn't let us have anything to do with our mother. But Daddy got me and said that he was taking me to see Ricky, which he did. But an added surprise was that he had our mama there.
Aww.
Mama got to come.
Yay.
And the first time I'd seen my mother in 4 years. Yeah, and the last time I got to see her, I was 7, and then I got to see her when I was 11. And she had a bunch of Christmas presents for us, so we had Christmas with our mom. But back to me and Ricky's Christmas, I got him socks, and he got me a teddy bear, and that was our Christmas.
Aw,
Yeah,
that's
because of course we
amazing.
didn't have any money, you know,
Sure.
Ricky being hurt and all.
Yeah, back then things meant a little more than they do now. You know, the
Yeah.
generation now they have, you know, so many toys. And,
Yeah. The first thing Mama did was give me a bath and wash my hair.
aw,
And she took a fit. She was washing my hair in the bathroom sink. Daddy rented a little cabin kind of thing for us, and she pulled Daddy in there. I want you to look at this water. It's black from all the soot from the
right.
wood heater.
Yeah.
That water was black. Wood smoke. But yeah, that's. And my brother grew up to be a big, strong man. He logged.
So your dad's name is Jack,
Mm-hmm.
and your mom was Gladys.
Yeah.
And what was her maiden name?
Stamy.
She was a Stamey. I understand you have a half sister also.
Yes, Mama had a little girl later on, 9.5 years after me.
And her name?
Cindy.
Cindy. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about when, as you're growing up, you had heard stories about your family, and I understand there might be a little bit of moonshine history in there.
Yeah, a little bit.
We can't change where we come from,
No.
but you know, around these parts, for sure, it was a kind of a fact of life. Everybody, you know, a lot of people made their own.
Yeah.
So who in your family was really, you know,
The Stamies.
the Stamies?
Mm-hmm. The Millers were churchgoers, and the Stamies were the.
Moonshiners?
Yeah.
Is there any stories you want to tell about that? Any funny stories?
Well, Hartzell Moore had it in for my family. You know, the Stamies. He just had it in for him. And he's all the time bringing the revenuers in. Every chance he got. And they always kept a tub of water, bushel tub, in the second kitchen because it had cracks in the floor. And that's where they did their canning and such. But anyways, they kept so that if the revenuers came to the house or the law, they could pour the liquor through them cracks in the floor and then wash the jugs out. There was
Oh my gosh, you're kidding.
So, well, it just so happened that they didn't have time for all of that. They was on them before they knew.
Uh-oh.
And it was cold in the wintertime, and I was just home from the hospital. So Daddy grabbed me and rolled that. They had a gallon of liquor, and he rolled that gallon of liquor up in that blanket with me on top of it to hide the liquor.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding me.
And so the log, you know, like, oh, you want to see the baby? Here, see the baby.
Your grandparents on your mom's side were Stamies, and that was Andy and Pearl, was that right?
Yes.
And then they had like 7 kids?
Yes.
And let's name them.
Paul B.,
Uh-huh.
Gracie,
Gracie.
Edith,
Mm-hmm.
Neil, Gladys, Polly, and Bill.
And so Gladys is your mom, but you're going to tell me a story about your Uncle Bill, right?
Yeah, Uncle Bill.
All right, let me hear it.
He got caught. First of all, he only had 2 fingers on his left hand. He only had this much of a hand.
Oh, goodness.
When he was 11 years old, some boys bet him that he couldn't catch a bullet. So they propped the gun up, and he caught it.
Are you kidding me?
He caught it.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
So anyways, but he could do anything. There wasn't nothing. He rolled cigarettes with those. Matter of fact, I've got a picture of him rolling a cigarette with those 2 fingers.
All right, we'll get a picture of it before I go today.
And so, anyways, he never went to school. Just stayed right there at home with Granny and Grandpa. Back in those days, they didn't make him go to school. he didn't know how to read or write. He's, taught himself how to read and write later on in life. But anyways, he went to court in Bryson City, federal court, for white liquor. And he got off. And they wrote an article up in the newspaper about this man that couldn't read and write, representing himself.
Wow.
Half a page.
Impressive.
And won.
And being acquitted, yeah. Wonderful.
And then he went up again the second time. And he went to federal court. The newspaper article said, "Slickest fox in Clay County strikes again." And it's written in there that the prosecutor, when he saw Uncle Bill walk into the courtroom, he just held his hand and shook it because he knew what he was up against.
Oh, no.
And Uncle Bill had he took out a little spiral notebook, one of those little pocket notebooks, with written in pen, in his own writing, and explaining, that wasn't his still, and that used to be called years ago Stillhouse Branch, because there was so many stills on it. It's later in years it was changed to the Trout Cove.
Okay.
But it used to be Stillhouse Branch because of all the stills. And Uncle Bill said, I can take you to 5 stills, Your Honor, on that branch. And there's public trails going to all of them. So, and they were saying that one of the stills led to Uncle Bill's house, and that there was black pipe going to his house. And he said, that's where I get my water, gravity water. And so he said, and that's just a public path that leads.
Just happens to go by his house.
Yeah. And he said, I go up there on occasion and I drink the liquor that they leave. But that's not my still. So he got off once again. And the third time.
Oh my gosh, they got him again?
The third time was him and my cousin Jack had a load of liquor in the car. And Hartzell Moore got in behind him. And they tried to outrun Hartzell. And Jack was driving and wrecked. And it says in the article that Hartzell came around the corner and around the curve, and there was a strong odor of what was it called? Poteen. Strong odor of poteen in the air where all the jugs had broke. And so he ended up going to court again, but he got off. Jack took the blame for all the liquor. He said it was his liquor, and that Uncle Bill said, I was just there to ride along, and he had a pint of bonded liquor. So he claimed that bonded liquor, and Jack claimed the white liquor. And so Jack went to prison and Uncle Bill didn't, but Uncle Bill said, but you can take me on if you want because I've got health problems and maybe I can get a little help. And the prosecutor's like, well, you've been found innocent. We can't take an innocent man to prison.
But he maybe would have got some health care in prison.
Yeah,
Isn't
right.
that a shame? Yeah. Wow. 3 times, and he had no formal education.
No.
That's amazing.
No, he was amazing.
Yeah.
We didn't know back then, people's mental health and everything, but Uncle Bill, he was schizophrenic, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. because he talked to people that wasn't there, and oh my goodness. But I'll tell you what, he could spin a story. All my friends loved him. All of my brother's friends, all my cousins' friends, everybody loved Uncle Bill. He was just a yarn teller. But I had some friends down there one time, and he had them convinced that he knew how to fly a plane. I mean, he was just a character, Uncle Bill was. Everybody loved Uncle Bill. Yeah.
Do you have any stories about your mom or any of your other aunts and uncles when they were young?
And Edith always said that Mama was a spoiled brat. That if she didn't get her way or got mad or something, she'd hold her breath till she'd pass out, and they'd have to dash water on her to get her to breathe.
Oh my gosh.
And
that's an accomplishment. I don't know if I could hold my breath until I passed out without taking a breath. Wow.
Right. And what else? Oh, I got another cute one about these two old aunts. You'll see a picture of them later on. But they were a lot older than my grandpa. They were grown, actually. And they were alcoholics. And you could always tell that they were coming because you could, back then, they made lanterns out of lard buckets. And you'd know they were coming because you'd see that little lantern go from one side of the road to the other side, way back and forth. So you knew that those two aunts were coming.
Aww.
And they were on up old. And they were having meeting, preaching at the church. And my aunts, in their old age, went down there and called the preacher out and busted their liquor on the church house steps and said, "We'll never drink another drop," and went into church and went to church from then on and never drink again.
Oh, wow, amazing.
Mm-hmm. Sure did.
Made a covenant. So talking about your dad and mom, Jack and Gladys, what about any stories about them when they were young? Or how they met? Or where they met?
All I really know is that Daddy used to ride an old mule to court Mama. And that's all I know.
He ride his mule over to her. Did they live far apart?
I think so. I wish I had the courting candle here. Have you ever seen a courting candle?
No, I haven't.
It's a candle, and it's got a little handle, and it's wired, and it's like a spiral, and it's got a little wooden, looks like a cork or whatever. It sits in the bottom, and it's got a little peg that comes out from it, and the deal is that you'd stick the candle down in the middle of that, because it was a spiral, down to the bottom. You'd roll the little cork thingy around till it go to the bottom. Put your candle in, and then as the candle would burn, you'd move it up.
Okay.
And move it up, and move it up. And when the candle was gone, then the date was over.
Oh, it was a timer.
It's called the courting candle.
The courting candle.
Yeah, Leanne's got mine, but yeah.
I'll see if I can't get her to get me a picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool little historical fact.
And what else?
Do you remember what year they were married?
No.
Well, then, so when was Ricky born?
I was born in 58. He was born in December of 56.
All right, and then
We're a year and 4 months apart. No,
Seven.
14 months apart. A year and 2 months apart.
right, and then later your mom remarried and you had your half sister Cindy.
Yeah.
But is there any other stories you want to tell me when you and Ricky and Cindy were growing up?
We camped a lot,
Yeah.
and my Uncle Paul B moved west first, and then it's like more of the family followed him. Uncle Paul B went, then Uncle Neil and Uncle Carl. Uncle Carl married my Aunt Gracie.
Okay.
And went, and then my mama and daddy went out west to Oregon and Washington.
So you guys the family kind of trickled out west a
The
little at a
family
time.
moved up, a lot of the family moved out west. Aunt Gracie and Uncle Carl, Uncle Neil, he went out there, Uncle Paul B, and then Mom and Daddy went, and we camped a lot. And the men folk, they logged. That's how the men folk made their living. And they'd have to stay in log camps a lot of times during the summer because it was just too far for them to travel back and forth. And so sometimes they'd come out on the weekends, but I remember when school let out, the men folk would have a camp set up and ready, and all the aunts and cousins would come and to that camp, and we just all camped for the summer and stayed with the men folk near where they were working.
Okay.
So that, there was no travel back and
Right.
forth. And I remember one
At least
year.
the families were able to stay together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember one year that I must have been about 4. Uncle Neil, I was the only little girl. Aunt Gracie had girls, but they were grown. And so I was the only little girl, and everybody else had boys. So I was kind of petted and stuff, but not spoiled, but petted. And Uncle Neil put me in a hollow log and slept in front of it that night. And I asked him why he did that, and it's because there had been a bear in the camp. And so Uncle Neil put me in that log so the bear couldn't get to
Right.
me, and slept in front of it with a gun.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember getting up in the morning, and they'd leave a frying pan out with grease in it, and there'd be little teeny tiny footprints all over in it, and it was the chipmunks, and the squirrels. And Daddy, I remember he said, "Ooh, Pam, come look, honey. Them squirrels had a square dance last night." And there's little footprints everywhere.
Oh.
Yeah, and we hunted and fished and all that a lot growing up.
I'm supposed to ask you about a footlog ghost bridge or something in your childhood.
It was where in the Trout Cove, you had to cross a little creek to get to the house, and they had a little foot log that went across it, so you wouldn't have to wade the creek. And they had a little foot log, and there had been a barn there before Granny and Grandpa bought the place, and the woman that lived there before had hung herself in that barn. Well, they tore that barn down, and there was a ghostly woman that would come out and at the foot log and hold her hand out to help you cross the foot log, and they were all scared. Junior was scared to death. My cousin Junior was terrified. So he honked, and you had to park your car up at the top of the hill and walk down, and cross the creek, and then it turned back to the left, and you went a ways to the house. And he'd hoot and holler and honk his horn and everything. So somebody'd come out there and meet him so he wouldn't have to cross that by himself. He wouldn't do it because evidently she appeared to him one time. And from then on,
He was scared to death.
yeah, he wouldn't cross it
Did you
by
ever
himself.
see her?
No,
But that was a story about it from your what, older cousins or something?
yeah, my
Yeah.
cousin Junior.
Wow. He was not crossing that footbridge by
No.
himself, or log, not crossing that foot log by himself.
No,
Huh.
no.
Well, okay, so let's move forward a little more in time, and you ended up having 3 children, and their names are
Leanne, Valerie, and William.
Leanne, Valerie, and William. Can you tell us any cute stories about them coming up?
I had Leanne in here in North Carolina. I had Valerie in Washington and William in Oregon.
Well, you have moved around a
Oh,
lot.
yes, I've lived in 11 different states.
Wow.
Yeah.
And are all of them here in North Carolina now?
No,
or no?
My son is out in Oregon. He went back to Oregon. Yeah,
And Valerie?
My Valerie and Leanne, they're here.
Valerie and Leanne are both here in
Yeah.
Clay County.
Mm-hmm.
And so, do you have grandkids?
I have 2. Leanne had 2 children, Christopher and Casey.
Oh, I know it's a big deal for grandkids for me because
Oh, yes.
I don't know, something about looking at your grandchild, just knowing that part of you is still walking the earth after after we pass on, and our flesh and blood will still be around, and then having their own kids. So that's kind of why we're doing these historical interviews, is so that maybe your grandkids or your great grandkids and beyond can kind of see and hear
Yeah.
you and see your your
Right.
expressions and your gestures and kind of know you a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, and I appreciate you sharing your story with us. Is there any other stories you want to tell that comes to the top of your head?
I went to Ogden School when I lived here,
Okay.
and I hated it. Everybody else loved it. They talk about Ogden? Oh, I loved it at Ogden. It wasn't nothing but a torture chamber to me.
Oh.
And it was 3 mean male teachers.
Oh no.
And I got paddled by 2 of them. Yes.
Thankfully, they don't have paddling in schools anymore. I got
Squirrely
paddled myself.
Byers and Bear Garrison, the 2 worst to get paddling from.
What grade were you in there?
I was in the 5th grade when I got paddled by Squirrely Byers. And that wasn't even my fault. What was happening, we were standing in line. We'd had art class, which we rarely got to have. So it was a very big treat. And we had paintbrushes. We were standing in line to go to the water fountain to wash out our paintbrush. And somebody behind me kept flicking their paintbrush in my hair. And I was telling them to stop it. And Squirrely thought I was the one causing the ruckus. And he jerked me up and whipped me.
And the
he tried
person
to
behind you didn't get in any trouble, right?
No, and
Of course
me
not.
trying to explain what was going on. But she was flicking paint in my hair. I was trying to tell her to stop it. And so then that was over with. I dried my tears. And then when we were getting ready for lunch, washed my hands, and we had to go outside and down this flight of stairs to get to the lunchroom, which was in the basement. And Squirrely Byers was standing there at the door in the window, looking out the window. And I started down the stairs, and somebody said something, and I turned around and looked, and the sun was in my eyes, so I made a kind of a,
Squinting.
squinting, and Squirrely jerked me up again and said that I was making faces at him and making fun of him
Oh,
because I
for
got
crying
whipped,
out loud.
and whipped the daylights out of me.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, I had corduroy pants on. He wore the corduroy off of it.
Mm.
Oh, of course there was some good memories, but not a lot. If you didn't play softball you know. And I wasn't good at ball, and I was left-handed and didn't have a left-handed glove, and you know, it was hard on me. So I got picked on by the boys a lot.
Mean guys.
Yeah.
Any funny stories you want to talk about Leanne or Valerie or William when they were young?
Oh my goodness, let me tell you this one.
Okay.
We used to do roses are red, violets are blue. If I had a treat, I'd give it to you. Well, it was hot in summertime. They were outside in their bathing suits and playing in the sprinkler. And there used to be a show on Nickelodeon where if you said, I think the line was, I don't know, if you said that, you'd get green slime.
Oh, okay.
And they dumped green slime over your head. Well, we thought it would be cute to do that. So I stood outside, and the kids stood beside the living room window, and my husband stood back there with a bucket of green slime that he made out of flour and water and green food color.
Okay.
And so we green slimed them, and that sun hit their little heads, and it just dried like paste. Dried. You talk about some squalling youngins.
Oh no.
We like to never got it out of their hair and had them in the sprinkler.
And food coloring probably stained their hair. I know Leanne's blonde. I'm not sure about Valerie and William. They had light colored hair.
Yeah,
So,
those two. Valerie had dark hair. It was awful. We never tried that again.
I bet. So, tell me a little bit about yourself today. What do you enjoy? Your hobbies or any shows you like to watch? Anything you want to share with us about yourself?
Well, I've got into. The kids make fun of me because I've gotten into these Vietnamese shows.
Yeah.
Because I like to watch them cook and gather food just to see.
And watch them
what
make
they
their
eat.
home and stuff
Yeah.
out of bamboo. And yeah.
Me and Leanne, right now, me and Leanne are into that series 911. We've been watching it.
Yeah.
But I used to sew a lot.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to. Matter of fact, I've got a quilt that needs to be put together now. I used to read, but my eyes have gotten so bad now that, you know, I don't really read much. But used to cook a lot. I don't really do much of nothing. My health won't allow it, but
So it's the COPD.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's got to be challenging.
oh, it is. You just fish out of water.
Darn it.
So, and I love to camp and fish. Oh man, I outfish the men.
I'm going to get a picture of this picture on the wall of you and Leanne walking down the railroad tracks on your way to go fishing
Yeah.
in Murphy. That's a great picture.
Yeah.
And we're going to share a bunch of these photos. That she's got some great pictures we're going to add to her gallery so you guys can enjoy those. Miss Pam, thank you so much for sharing all these stories. There's some sad stuff and some fun stuff and some hilarious stuff. So I really appreciate you sharing your family history and your ancestry with us today.
It's my pleasure. I've enjoyed it, Tess.
Good, I'm glad.
And I hope I didn't offend anybody.
Well, you know, we can't pick our ancestors. So the truth is the truth. I don't think anyone would be offended at all. If you or anyone you know would like to be a part of our one-on-one with Clay County History series, don't hesitate to email me at cchacHayesville@outlook.com. Please find us on 4 different social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And please visit our website at clayhistoryartsnc.org. Thanks again for tuning in, y'all, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye now.
Bye.
I don't know about you, but all this talk about moonshine has got me thinking of a song. You know the one. Down the road from me, there's an old holler tree where they lay down $1 or 2. If you go around the bend, when you come back again, there's a jump full of good old Mountain Dew. But he thinks he's a giant when you give him a pint of that good old Mountain Dew. My Uncle Bill's got a sill on the hill where he lays down a gallon or two. Others in the sky get so drunk that they can't fly from smelling that good old Mountain Dew. They call it that good old Mountain Dew, and then Dad refuses our food. I hush up my mug if you fill up my jug with that good old Mountain